Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Councillor Nam Quach, and I am the Mayor for the City of Maribyrnong. I'd also like to thank Dean for his beautiful welcome to country. I once spoke to a Hazara refugee, his name was Muhammad, and he said that, Nam, through the eyes of Aboriginal people, we're all refugees here in Australia, and I couldn't agree more. So in doing so, I would also like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation. We offer our respect to the elders of these traditional lands and through them to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, both peoples, both past and present. And welcome to all our distinguished guests here today. I'm very thrilled to be here at the official opening of the new Asylum Seeker Resource Centre, and I welcome the centre back to mighty Footscray, back to Nicholson Street, in fact, where Con first started the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre in a much smaller building in 2001. Now, when Con announced that about 12 months ago that he was bringing the centre back to Footscray, I was very excited. So we caught up for a coffee, and I sat down and listened to the plans that he had in store. And I'm just thrilled, and it's wonderful to see these plans being realised here today. Footscray and the city of Maribyrnong is a natural fit for the centre's home base. Our city has a proud history of welcoming people from all around the world. In fact, about 45% of people living here in the city of Maribyrnong speak a language other than English at home. Diversity has helped shape our city, and it is now seen as a social and economic advantage, contributing to our vibrant business, cultural and community sectors. Our city is also a declared refugee welcome zone, and we're committed to supporting the work of the ASRC in our community. And that's not lip service. I can say quite literally that I very happily helped paint these here walls during many of Con's working bees. Each working bee seemed to be the final working bee. And I'm actually quite chuffed to see Con in a suit and tie today, because I've always seen his work ethic, really bringing up a sweat. But as a council, I'd like to say that we are very supportive of the work that Con and the ASRC are doing here in our city, and again, that is not lip service. We've actually published a multicultural policy and action plan which specifically identifies and names the ASRC as an entity we wish to support. Now, as you may have guessed, I'm a very proud Vietnamese Australian and a child of refugees myself. It's been about 35 years since my family first came to Australia, and we are extremely grateful and thankful for everything she has done for us. I was lucky enough to be born here, but I would like to share the story of my refugee parents, who are they are my all-time heroes in life. To be honest, I was struggling to work out where should I start and what should I say about my family story. So I thought I'd start off by using a skill that I learnt in prep school called show and tell. So sitting on my wall at home, I hang a picture which I use for inspiration. It helps motivate me, it helps pick me up when things are rough. So I've brought copies of that picture here today. It's copies of two very simple letters. They are dated 1979, and they were issued during the Fraser administration from the Australian Department of Immigration, and they were issued to my parents whilst they were in a refugee camp in Malaysia. It's a very simple letter. It's hand-typed. There's some particulars, dates, times, names, and some IDs. There's not much text, only a few lines, so I'll just read out the main part, which says, Letter of authority to travel to Australia, subject to grant on arrival of an entry permit under the Migration Act 1958 as amended. Now there's a few particulars, dates, etc., but point 7 I'll read out, which is my favourite point. Type of entry permit to be issued on arrival. Resident. Now it doesn't say temporary protection visa. It doesn't say temporary resident. It says resident. And there's some photos for ID, and you can see my father here with my oldest brother. My father looks quite happy there. I think my brother's a bit confused. and his mum with my middle brother. And I think the face of mum is quite relieved here. So I will pass these around for show and tell, and I would like to start by passing it to the Honourable Malcolm Fraser. Now, I would like to make a point just here with the photos of my brother, my middle brother, and my oldest brother. And we've spoken about children here today. And to the Minister, Scott Morrison, can I say, how dare you use children as a bargaining chip? Shame on you. But as the letters go around for show and tell, I'd like to briefly talk about my family's story. So what had brought them to a refugee camp in Malaysia in the first place? Well, Dad had been a fighter in the Vietnam War as a naval captain, having completed his military studies at the Newport Naval College in the United States. After the fall of Saigon in 1975, Dad continued to push his politic for a free and democratic Vietnam. And as a consequence, he was captured by the Viet Cong, taken away and thrown into a prison. And Mum recounts the experience to me on the day. Unable to return to her own house, she took shelter from the rain under the cover of banana leaves with my toddler brother, as she worked out what on earth she would do without Dad. She would find solace in family, whilst my father was persecuted in prison. Several years later, after Dad's release from prison, he knew that the only way to live the virtues of liberty and democracy that he had fought for, without risking further imprisonment, was to leave Vietnam, and they did so via boat. So in 1979, my parents left Vietnam and arrived to Malaysia, along with around about 300 other refugees in the same vessel. Dad was the captain of the boat, Captain Quach, given his naval background, and Mum was by his side. Mum's journey was especially traumatic because she was pregnant when they had left Vietnam. Halfway through the seaward journey, they were attacked by Hainanese pirates. Dad's boat had run out of water. Many goods had been pillaged, and a number of deaths had been sustained. And then, on a rickety refugee boat out at sea in the middle of nowhere, Mum decided to have a baby. And Dad had no choice but to deliver the baby himself, my middle brother. Now, I'm not sure who was steering the boat at this point in time. Probably my older brother. But the delivery was a success. Though Mum nearly lost her life in the process. So you can imagine the relief they felt when they finally reached land. Now, only after about 3 months in a refugee camp in Malaysia, my family had been evaluated and recognised as refugees. They had applied for and received their letters of acceptance as residents into Australia, and these are the letters that I hang on my wall. Now, the rest, as they say, is history. The Australian society welcomed my family with open arms and open hearts. The Aussie spirit of kindness helped my parents settle in, find their feet, and embrace what it means to be Australian. They would find work in local factories and raise 3 boys to put them through uni to allow us to chase an Australian dream. So you can see why my parents are my heroes. And it is because of them and their struggles that I stand here today before you as the Mayor, dedicated to improving the lives of those in our city. Now, I'd like to finish off just to come back to the letters which I hang on my wall. You know, it took 3 months while I was in Malaysia to receive these letters of acceptance into Australia. Now, this was in 1979, during an avalanche of hundreds of thousands of refugees fleeing Vietnam. There was no internet, there was no Wi-Fi, everything was hand-typed. But what there was plenty of goodwill, plenty of humanity and plenty of compassion. And looking at the work at the ASRC, I know that these values are still incredibly true and reflective of the Australian spirit we know today. But perhaps most importantly, President, in 1979, which was lacking today, was that there was an abundance of political will to make it happen. Not because it was a bargaining chip or a political election football, but because it was the right thing to do. If it wasn't for the leadership, the foresight and the decency of Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser, then I wouldn't be here today as the democratically elected Mayor for the city of Maribyrnong. And so from the bottom of my heart, from the hearts of my mum and my dad, from my brothers, from the hearts of so many thousands of refugee families living here in Australia, I would like to say, tôi xin cảm ơn ông Malcolm Fraser. Thank you, Malcolm Fraser. Thank you, Australia. And a very big thank you to the ASRC. The return of the ASRC to Footscray is truly an asset for our great city, and I wish you Godspeed in all your future work here in the city of Maribyrnong. Thank you very much.